Hello everyone. Right. First of all, I'd like to thank Stevie for putting on this event. The level that she has gone to create awareness around domestic violence, family violence, mental health and addiction is commendable to her. To bring a room filled of like-minded individuals is absolutely amazing. So can we please put our hands together for Stevie? Thank you. I would like to state that writing this story in relation to my past and my present was extremely hard for me. It did not matter what angle I took this on. In the first 3 seconds, it brought me to tears every time. So I apologise if I get teary through this speech. Which also reminded me that no matter how strong we become, it takes us back to those memories. And even though we are not living it, we are living it every single day in the background. And with that said, it reminded me that I am only human, and no matter how much we say we are strong because of the moment we speak of it, the emotions are as real as if we're reliving it. Today I'm going to tell you a story regarding a girl who was looking for something she did not quite know herself, a journey of fulfilling a void that would lead her down many troubled paths. She was a young girl who had snuck out of her room to attend an 18-year-old's birthday party. Little did she know that only a few hours later she would be fighting for her life to survive. She consumed a drink that would later change her life for the rest of her life. That one drink she took was spiked with 3 powerful drugs, a cocktail to kill, a drink that dropped her into a coma on her parents' floor. The ambulance was called, resuscitation was performed, and her parents told to get all the immediate family to the hospital, as they did not think that she would make it. She was 14 years old. She was me. I was brought up in a small country town of 2,000 people. The closest city and hospitals were 2 hours away. I came from a very loving home, supportive home, a close blended family that consisted of my mum, my stepdad, that was pretty much my dad, my brother and a stepbrother and sister. Yet I never felt loved and always alone, but was shown love more than most. It was an internal conflict that lay deep within my soul. Having my life almost taken at the age of 14 set the foundation and the excuses I used to fuel my addictions, negative bad attitude and my self-sabotaging behaviour. This would set the precedence of the next chapters of my life. My partying was out of control, my drinking became from social to everyday, and my complete disregard for anyone else was the person I had become. I did not care who I hurt, I did not care what I did as long as I was drinking. That was all that mattered. And I can honestly say I lacked empathy and compassion for another. By now, I was well known to hospital staff, having around 8 overdoses, 3 stomach ulcers and a liver that was starting to shut down. I was disliked by many medical professionals. They just seen me as a troubled alcoholic teen. I was now 18. I would also like to mention I had a really good paying job at Mount Cook, so I was a well-functioning alcoholic. Long story short, my bosses up at Mount Cook got hold of my condition and barred me from drinking up there. Now let me tell you this was a village that everyone came from all over the world to work, party and sleep. This is what it was all about. Due to my massive drinking habit, they could not completely stop me from drinking, as it now could kill me due to how much alcohol I consumed daily. So with the doctor's advice, they put me on Valium to get off the alcohol. Let me tell you about the first time I ever touched Valium. It was wonderful. There was no more problems. I could handle anything, and that void in my heart was gone. I absolutely loved it. I thought, this is what happiness is, and it was being prescribed from a doctor, so it must be okay. Well, their worst nightmare came to life. I was found in a pool of blood and unconscious. My liver had hemorrhaged. I spent 7 days in hospital and in and out of seizures, and I had now gained a full-blown Valium addiction. I now go to rehab to get clean. The rehab also gave me unlimited amounts of Valium, and I also picked up a codeine addiction. I become cunning, and I had 3 doctors prescribing me medication. I did what every good addict does in a situation like this after rehab. I leave rehab, I act clean and reformed to my family. I quit my job. I moved to Auckland where I can't be seen by family and friends. I now pick up my drinking, my prescription medication addiction, and gain a gambling addiction, and all three were on fire. 1 year later, I got on a plane and just turned up at home. I didn't ask for help. I would never ask for help. I didn't even mention anything, as I knew subconsciously now looking back, my mum would soon see what was going on, and she would get me the help that I needed. My mother is Lynn Martin. She is my saviour. One day before my 19th birthday, I was sent to my second rehab. This time it was 6 weeks intensive rehab, and I had already done 6 weeks detox, a time that will haunt me for the rest of my life. My body was screaming. Coming off benzos was horrific. Covered in vomit most nights, sweats and the nightmares are still very much vivid. Rehab is where I would be introduced to my first domestic violent relationship. They say never ever have a relationship with anyone in rehab. This is called codependency. Well, guess what? I was never one to follow the crowd, or listen for that matter. If you told me not to do something, it was like this little voice inside of me that said, challenge accepted, and I was going all in. I left rehab 6 weeks later on a high, but this time not the type of high that I was used to. I was happy, I was content, and I was what I thought in love. So once again, I took off from home, from my family, and got on a plane and moved to Auckland with my now new partner. In the back of my head, I had a gut feeling that he was going to hit me, and I had no idea why. It was just something inside of me. I got on that plane with a feeling of this is my happily ever after. I would never touch substances again, and I now have a man who wouldn't either. We were on the same wavelength and the vision to our future, so I thought. Four weeks in, while I was in bed snuggled up to him, I found a bag of ice in his pocket. My heart sunk. I'd never seen ice before. I asked him, what was this? His reply was, just don't tell my mother. I said, if she asks me, I will not lie to her. He got on top of me and he strangled me until I almost passed out. He said, this is your warning. This would now set the next 2 years of my life. Faced with if I left, I would go back to substance abuse and lose my family. I was on my last lifeline with them. I was not strong enough to go back to my old life and stay clean. So I stayed in this relationship that abused me every day physically and mentally. He only ever hit me once by mistake in the face. His physical abuse was to my arms, stomach and legs where people couldn't see it, and I didn't believe it was domestic violence. It's funny what the mind tells us. I hid this from my family for over a year. I lost all of my friends because of him, and the abuse alongside isolation became my normal and also became what I thought love meant, possession. With him saying all the time, it's because I love you, I'm sorry, I do this. Looking back now through those eyes, that's crazy. Looking through a broken 20-year-old girl's eyes, it was believable. A year went by, my mum called me out of the blue. I broke down and she said to me, is he hitting you? I had given her no reason to ask that question. I broke down and she said, pack your bags, I'm getting on the flight and I'm bringing you home. My partner's mother, also a victim to his dad's fist, took me to the airport and I went home. He found out 6 hours later and was devastated. He said all the good things. He said he would change. So he moved to Christchurch in with my family. I thought it would be better. It only got worse. Then one day he didn't come home. He had another life and was breaking into homes and stealing, and he got locked up. I thought I was out. This was it. So I thought. 3 weeks later, I found out I was pregnant. Why was my question? How? What are you doing to me? So I thought about it, and I ended up keeping the baby. His name is Carson. My angel. 8 months, I went into jail every single Sunday to see him inside. He promised me the abuse would stop, and only 2 weeks before I gave birth, he came home and he was on home detention. He was horrible, the worst he had ever been, and the jealousy for Carson was incredible. I would be bathing Carson and he would come in and drag me up on my hair. While I'd be screaming to go back in. This was regular. Why didn't I leave then, right? I asked myself the same question. Carson is now 4 months old. We were at his mother's house. A very wealthy woman. She said to me, come down to the beach and have a swim for 15 minutes. I was probably less than 10. He said his father can look after him. I came back to Carson and he was screaming. I ran over and he had an instant black eye. I had her in my ear saying, do not think the worst. He wouldn't have done this. I did not tell my family for over a year. I lived with that guilt. I will live with that for the rest of my life. Why didn't I walk away then? I guess because I didn't see it. It did not happen. I had the mother telling me he wouldn't have done this, and I had him telling me, did you honestly think I'd hit my son? 2 months later, the last big fight. Carson is now 6 months old. I am studying psychology, and I had an exam due, so he knew he couldn't be there. He knew I couldn't be there on the weekend. I got a message from him at 6 a.m. on Sunday saying, I love you. I thought, that's weird. He should be asleep, but instead I was thinking he's just got home from partying. So I went around to his place, always needing proof to back up my insecurities. I arrived at the house with all of our photos face down. I did not really know what I was going to walk into. I opened up the door to his bedroom and he was asleep alone. That was a relief. He woke up and he was startled. His phone was going crazy, so I grabbed it to see who he had been messaging. I had Carson in my arms. He charged at me to get his phone, and I lifted my arm up to guard my face, and the phone impact split his head and blood dripped down his face. This put him into a rage. He grabbed me with Carson in my arms, threw me against a window, then onto the bed. I was laying on top of Carson to protect him from getting struck. He continued to beat me on my face and the side of my body. It felt like hours. It was probably 60 to 90 seconds. I got up and I called the police. He said, I don't want to go back to jail. I love you. Please don't. I told him, you ever touch me again with my son? And that was it. Something in me then and there seen it, and without a doubt, that would be the last time I would ever see him. I had an option to press charges. He already had a record including holding a knife to my throat with intent to use. That someone else had reported on him, not me. I gave him this option. You leave Christchurch in 2 days and never contact me again, and I give you your freedom in return for mine. Or I press charges and you'll go to do jail for the next 3 years. He chose freedom. This is just a very small snippet of what life was like aged 14 to 21. As you can imagine, many more colourful memories in between and after. Since this stage in my life, I had another 2 not-so-great partners and have suffered extreme anxiety and depression, which go hand in hand. With that being said, at age 26, I became a personal trainer. That changed my life and my purpose again. I knew I could make a massive difference to these people, not only physically but mentally, and I found comfort within that. Thank you. I have since then owned a very successful PT company in Kalgoorlie. I developed our online health and wellness package for the offshore oil and gas industry. I own a company, Diamond Dollar Industries, which is an international marketing and innovation agency, and I've started my Living My Best Life movement brand, which is focusing more on self-development for adults and empowering merchandise, vlogs and blogs of men and women telling their stories to inspire others. Me and my mother have started a company called Urban Kids. This is a self-development program to help children with such things as bullying, mental health, or any child needing a program to give them the tools to help with confidence and self-empowerment. This will be a 10-day in-house retreat for kids, first released in July 2019. This is not a typical PC in the box program. There is no box, and our approach is a little bit left field and very controversial. But this program is really teaching skills, life skills, the type you do not get taught in school. This company is very close to mine and my mother's heart, as my son, my mum's grandson, Carson, has been the victim of bullying. So instead of complaining that there was nothing around, we have started to create a pretty powerful company where many like-minded people have come together. And may I just mention, I am a single mother to 2 beautiful boys, so please never use the excuse of I have children, I can't do this, ... I have work, I can't do this, ... or whatever other excuse that you choose to live with. This is your life. If I can leave you with one key message from the speech tonight, is that I stand here as living proof today to say there is life after addiction and there is life after domestic violence. They are only words that described a chapter in my life. They were not me, and they are not me today. I stand here today in the best version of myself. I am confident, filled with unbelievable amount of empathy and compassion for another. I will change lives simply by being me and telling my story to others. I would like to finish off with this. I can sit here and tell you my life was hard, and it was. I can also sit here and tell you that every decision I made led to me to this very point in my life where I'm standing on the stage telling my story. You can only connect the dots looking backwards. I knew one day my struggles and my pain would all make sense. I used to dream of the payoff and the comeback and standing on stage and telling my why. Well, here I am. I know this my entire being. I was here to change lives and leave a legacy behind. Shit things happen, and we all have a story, and the story is very real to you. What you do with that is completely up to you. Thank you.